When it comes to divisive watch brands, one takes the crown above all others.
People don't hate Invicta watches.
Yes. Yes, they do.
We'll just rip off the case, we'll rip off the bezel, we'll rip off the bezel indexes.
Swiss made and made of their best fit and finish and materials.
Invicta, that's not a watch brand. That's horrible.
When you compare an Invicta watch to say one of your higher end or perceived higher end watches like a Rolex.
I've been wanting this watch for a long time. I said it before, one of my premier watches, man, like one of my grails.
Invicta watches are seemingly either loved or hated by people in the watch community. Some really appreciate the gigantic and colourful watch designs, whilst others criticise the brand for its reliance on Rolex rip-offs, along with a hugely inflated MSRP pricing strategy. I reviewed the Pro Diver last year, which is their Rolex Submariner clone, and I have to say, I think on a material level, it was a high-quality product considering the low price. Sure, it had some quirks like the unusual tone lume pips and the huge engraving down the side of the watch. However, in terms of specifications, it was almost unbeatable at the price point. Until now, I thought that would be the only Invicta that would appeal to me in some way or another. The large sizing and flashy aesthetic of most models just don't work with my wrist or style. But maybe that isn't the case. Maybe some Invicta models can be modest in both size and style. To find out, I spent 84 years searching Amazon and eventually stumbled upon this. A 40mm Invicta that looked almost nothing like a typical Invicta, or a Rolex for that matter. No cartoon characters on the dial, no dangling chains, and a fairly decent price too. What? There was no way I could pass this opportunity by. I got Amazon to send this across for a review, so thanks to them. Normally it retails for between £70 and £80, despite the frankly ridiculous $495 RRP tag.
Bruh.
I'm going to judge this as a 75 quid watch. Not a watch worth the higher figure because on no planet is this watch worth $500. It came in the same bright yellow Invicta box as the Pro Diver did. While it's pretty loud, it's also some of the best protective packaging I've come across. Everything is nicely padded, and it certainly gives a good first impression, especially if you're unfamiliar with the brand. By most traditional watch brand standards, Invicta does a fairly good job of their product shots. So upon opening the box, I was pleased to discover the watch looked just like the stock images, if not better. Indeed, the Amazon listing was accurate with the sizing. At 40mm across, 46mm lug to lug, and a mere 9.7mm thick, this has to be one of the most wearable watches from this brand for average to slim wrists. While there is no classic gold plating commonplace on other models, instead there is a slightly more subtle rose gold finish across the steel case upper, with a typical silver steel rear. The polishing is very smooth across the entire case, with the most notable feature being the double ringed bezel. As a whole, the finishing is okay for a budget watch, but the edges are pretty blunt and certainly not as precise as those on most luxury watches. Despite this, I think the watch looks good, and the case is simple but attractive. On the right side, you're met with the grippy clown. Do you make clown watches? On the right side, you're met with the grippy crown emblazoned with the Invicta logo. While this is heavily grooved, unfortunately, it doesn't interact very well with the movement and is quite unresponsive. You'll notice here that it takes a substantial twist to get the hand to start rotating at all. Then when it does, it suddenly accelerates. As such, it's tricky to make quick, fine adjustments to the time or date. But because it's quartz, it's not going to be a major issue because you won't be touching it that often. Thankfully, the other flank of the watch is a better story. Gone is the large Invicta inscription. This time it's just simple and clean, with no unnecessary advertisement that you're wearing an Invicta. If you're one of these guys I've seen grinding the engraving out of your Pro Diver, you'll be glad to know that that won't be required with this model. The watch features a fairly standard 50 meters of water resistance, along with the unusually named dial covering, which Invicta are calling the Flame Fusion Crystal. Invicta are known for their marketing exaggerations, and this appears to be an example of that. By my understanding, this is simply a type of treated mineral crystal, sometimes known as K1 glass, which will offer slightly better scratch resistance than traditional mineral, whilst not quite competing with the likes of sapphire. Considering the price of the watch, this is still pretty decent. Just don't expect something out of Power Rangers to be shielding your watch because the name seems to be a bit of a gimmick. When it comes to the dial, it's refreshing to see a fairly original design. I say fairly original because I've got a sneaking suspicion that someone from the Invicta design team took inspiration from this Breitling, as it bears more than a passing resemblance. There are some differences, including the numbers at 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, as well as the 2 markers that flank the large day indicator at the top center. The lugs and side profiles vary too. Though the handset and overall design language is extremely similar on both pieces, it's not an outright clone in the way that the Pro Diver is to the Rolex Submariner, but it's also not quite as unique as I first thought. Perhaps there's an even more famous and popular luxury watch that this is based off. Let me know in the comments if you know, because I'm no luxury watch expert. By no means am I saying it's a boring or ugly watch though, I think it's quite a looker. It features a dark grey dial that's got a particularly strong sunburst effect, which pairs well with the rose gold accents spread across it. Traditionally, I'm not a huge fan of rose gold as it doesn't fit my wardrobe very well. However, I must say it's been executed rather well here and it's not overpowering. The simple appearance is aided by the raised ring around the perimeter, indicating 5-minute intervals, as well as the subtle Invicta logo just below the 12 o'clock position. Both windows have faceted cutouts too, which improves the look on a macro level. All of these factors combine to give a versatile aesthetic that could be worn to the office or for even black tie events. Alignment is good too. You'll notice the second hand on this unit pretty much hits every marker as it moves around the dial. Indeed, this uses a quartz movement, the Seiko VJ55 to be specific. This is what offers the day-date functionality, and other than the adjustment issues I mentioned earlier in this review, it seems fairly decent. The tick motion seems consistent, and it's virtually silent during operation, which is nice. The final piece of the puzzle is of course the strap. For a £70 watch, this black croc calfskin one is more than usable. It's soft and fairly flexible, though its surface does exude some rubbery vibes. It's a shame that it doesn't feature quick release tabs either. But I'd say most of you would be fine keeping this on the watch for quite a long duration. It's comfortable on wrist and not bad overall. Does this vintage, as they're labeling it on the website, does it offer more value on a material level than the Pro Diver? No. Is it an attractive dress watch which will likely have more mass appeal than 99% of Invicta watches? In my eyes, definitely. I'd love to know what you think down below. Maybe you're a fan of other Invicta watches too. Subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.